Good to have you on a Friday. Husker baseball team hosting Iowa all weekend, starting at 6:30 tonight. We've got the Royals season opener with the Angels and Albert Pujols. Broadcast starts at 8:30 from California. And the Masters going on. Lee Westwood and Peter Hansen tied for the lead. Both are on the course right now, 5 under par, ahead by 3 guys tied at 4 under. And, of course, people are getting all worked up about spring football. We're in Lincoln, for goodness sakes. The big spring game is a week from tomorrow. Gives us a chance to get excited not only about the current, but, of course, the past. And one of the great names that we think of in the past, anybody that played for the Huskers in the mid-1990s, we love to hear from because it's always good to get their takes on current Huskers and the current issues of the game. Former All-American, member of the 94-95 National Championship teams, Jared Tomich, talking to us just outside of his home, just outside of Chicago. Jared, good to have you on 93.7 The Ticket again.
Hey, how are you guys?
Not bad. When you think back to spring football and spring football practice, I mean, what do you remember about it, and how seriously was it taken?
Oh, it was very serious, especially for inter-squad. You know, I mean, it was I think it's a much bigger deal than what people really. You know, everybody else kind of, you know, the crowd and everybody else thinks it's kind of a just an inter scrimmage and things like that. But there's a lot of pride taken with within the team itself and how things are shaping up and what we're looking forward to in the summertime. It really is a mood setter for the season coming up.
We used to hear stories not only during the spring but in the fall about practices where ones would go against ones. They'd put the ball on the 5-yard line at the end of practices, and it would just be vicious. And you'd hear stories from Peter we knew after those practices that was the best we were going to see. Anything on Saturday couldn't be as tough as that. Is that the way you felt sometimes?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. And it was more intense at that time than what it would be on Saturday. You know, and it was more heated. You know, and we were such a tight-knit group. You know, it would get very heated, and we would end up running a lot of stairs afterwards. You know, if nothing else, for just because we were so emotional about it. And they took a great sense of pride in the offense, and we took a great sense of pride in the defense, and nobody wanted to give, but it got us ready for the weekend.
Wow. But even in the spring, too, I mean, and we'll be the 8,000th people to ask you this, but, I mean, is there one story that you can remember that's just legendary? You going up against one of the offensive linemen or just being right near the Peter brothers going crazy with somebody? I mean, I'm sure you've had to tell it 1,000 times, but fans love it. They love to get in the trenches with you guys and get an idea of just how bad or vicious or funny it got.
Oh, and that's what it was. You know, yeah, and funny, exactly. Yeah, we'll playing next to Jason and Christian. Yeah, that was always a riot in itself. But you know, it was the big thing was you know, at that time it was Chris Dishman and Matt Verzal and some of the offensive linemen, and we were all pretty tight. But when Coach would put the ball down, you know, like you said, on that 5-yard line, and we'd start going head to head. Yeah, I mean, everything was flying, and you know, it was. The funny thing is, half the time, you know, we would get into kind of intramural or inter squad, I should say, you know, just scuffles, and you know, fortunately, Jason and Christian, they were a little heavier back then, and so I would be the one volunteering to having to run the stadium stairs for starting the you know, some of the scuffles and things like that we would have. So they lucked out a lot. Grant and I ran a lot of stairs for those guys.
Former Husker All-American Jared Tomich on the Gaskins and Stevens show. One of the worries with Husker fans, and you watch a lot of Husker football, but 84th in sacks last year. Nebraska is not getting to the quarterback. And I'm sure you watch a lot of Husker football. Can you explain that?
You know, it's something you have to work on, and it's something you have to take a great sense of pride in. And you know, Coach and Pride, you know, when it came to sacks and you know, and how he, you know, kind of got it across to us, that's all I want. You know, you got to want it. You know, it's sacks for us are touchdowns, for the offense, and as far as what a big deal they are. And, you got to really want it, and you got to really train a lot, and practice for that, and really watching your film and breaking every little thing down that you can. And, when you finally, you're going up against a guy 70 times, and it might just be that one time that his hand doesn't come up to the right spot, and you can pin it and get past him and grab that sack. And you got to be so prepared that when you do have that opportunity, you're taking advantage of it and you're getting it. And it's so it's not just about the coaching and the blitzing and trying to tget the offense kind of on their heels, but that's a part of it. But it's also about the individual players really being so over prepared. When the opportunity presents itself, you take advantage of it.
It's interesting. Jared Tomich, former Nebraska All-American, also a walk-on from just outside of Chicago, joining Gaskins and Stevens, 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. That's interesting because I was a student reporter a few years after your great runs. You were there from 93 to 96, and the defense was always in the top 10 in almost every category. And then by 99, 2000, 2001, actually just right after Charlie McBride left, it started to drop off a little bit. The talent dropped off. So did the number of sacks. And I remember asking the defensive line coach at the time, I think this was the year after Charlie retired, about sacks, and their sacks had gone significantly down. And he said, well, that's an overrated, he basically told me that's an overrated stat. We're worried about hurries. We're worried about disruption. You don't always have to complete the sack. Judging by what you just said, would you say that's a bunch of hooey, or is there something to that? Because it seems like the great teams do have a lot of sacks.
Yeah, those are important things too. The hurries are important. The tackles for losses are important. But the sacks, that's the crown jewel. And that's what's going to make you hit a quarterback, and sack them 3-4 times in a game. That's what throws them off their game. So then they're worried about it. If they're not worried about being sacked, then any quarterback is going to have they're going to just do whatever they want, because if they don't at least have a little bit of happy feet and be thinking in the back of their head that I've only got if they got to be counting in their head 1, 2, 3, and they know that somebody's going to be on them. If not, it's really hard for the DBs to do their job.
Obviously, the Greg Williams story is making huge headlines, talking to his players, and not only about bounties. This not described in the audio that we heard yesterday, mostly about going after the head and knocking guys sideways. When coaching, you got coaching not only in college but in the NFL. What were coaches saying to you about big hits?
And I've been a little bit outspoken in our area here in the Chicago papers and stuff like that. Because with being playing for the Saints for 4 years and everything else, and hey, we played the game as tough and as hard as we possibly could, and you went out there every time, and with the ultimate goal that next morning when the guy that you're going against all game long wakes up, you want him to be so sore and beat on that he remembers that he played you the next day. And that's what it's about. But it's about the sportsmanship. It's about the respect for the game, the respect for you're not just the player, the players on your team, but the players on the other team. Coach Osborne, Coach McBride, Coach Ditka, Coach Vermeil, four of the great coaches that I got the opportunity to play for, all told us to respect the game, and that's not they're not respecting the game when they're doing that. And so when it's stuff like this is going on, and now the problem is every little thing that somebody says, as far as playing tough or going after somebody or whatever, it's all going to be blown up because they went and did something so disrespectful and so appalling, with the bounties, and you're trying to ruin somebody's career, you're trying to ruin their life in that sense, and there's no room for that at all, and I'm happy with the commissioner so far with what he's really coming down on him and making it a big deal.